So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to turn standard form equations into slope-intercept form equations. You would do this if you were being asked to solve for x, if you were being asked to graph a standard form equation, or if you were just being asked to rewrite the equation into slope-intercept form. So standard form equations and slope-intercept form equations look different, and it's important for you to recognize what's different about each type of equation. The standard form equation has x and y on the same side. So you can see here that I have taken the equal sign, I've split it down the middle, and I have x and y together on the left. In slope-intercept form, x and y are on different sides. So you can see here that I've split the equal sign down the middle with a red line, and I have y on the left, but I have x on the right. And with slope-intercept form, I can easily graph an equation using the y-intercept and the slope, whereas in standard form, I can't as readily find those features of the graph, and so turning it into slope-intercept form can be beneficial if you need to graph a line. So in order to turn standard form into slope-intercept form, the first thing we would do is add or subtract the term that has the x on both sides of the equation. On the right-hand side, I would suggest that you switch the terms so that you have the x first, and then you have the term without the x second. That puts it in a more standard slope-intercept form equation. It makes it easier to identify the slope and the y-intercept. It's not backwards from what you're used to. So I suggest you do that, but you don't necessarily have to. Once you have moved the term with the x to the other side, you do need to divide absolutely everything by that number that is in front of y. Okay, so every single term, not just the x term, not just the term without it, every single thing. It's like being fair. It's like if you have a sibling and your mom gives your sibling a cookie but doesn't give you a cookie, you feel like it's not fair. So this is the same thing. If you divide the x by the number in front of the y, the number that doesn't have the x feels left out. So we want to make sure that we share the wealth and we divide everything. And then in the end, simplify if you need to. This makes it so much easier for you to graph if you can just simplify. So let's go through a couple examples. Right now, I'm just going to go through the turning it into slope-intercept form piece, and then if you were being asked to graph, you could watch the graphing slope-intercept form equations video to help you with how to graph from the equation that you get at the end here. So if I look at this equation, I have negative 2x plus 7y equals negative 14. So I'm going to start with drawing a line down the middle of the equal sign to split up the two sides. And I said that the first thing we need to do was add or subtract the term with x on both sides. So if I look at this equation, I have a negative 2x. So I want to use the opposite of what I see so that I move it from the left to the right. And so the opposite of a negative is a positive. So I'm going to add 2x plus 2x on both sides. On the left side, the negative 2x and the positive 2x cancel, and I'm left with 7y equals. And then before I rewrite this next part, I suggested in step 2 that we switch the terms so that we have the x first, so that you know that your m is in front. So I'm going to take that 2x and move it to the front, and take that negative 14 and move it to the back, so that I now have 2x and then minus 14. So now my y is not quite by itself yet. I need to do one more step of dividing. So I'm going to divide absolutely every single term, all three of them, by that number in front of y. So it's a positive 7 right now. And on the left side, 7 divided by 7 is 1. So now I have y equals. 2/7. I can't do anything to simplify that or divide it anymore, so I'm going to leave it as 2/7. And then my x. And then the second part I can treat as division. So I can do 14/7 is like 14 divided by 7. First, a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and then 14 divided by 7 is 2. So this would be my answer, or this would be my same equation as I started with, just written in slope-intercept form. So let's try another one. Let's look at 36x minus 6y equals 24. So I'm going to start the same way, where I want to move my x term to the other side. So I have a positive 36x here, so I want to subtract 36x's on both sides. They cancel on the left, which is my intention. When you bring down that 6y, make sure you don't lose that negative that goes in front of the 6. And then just like before, let's move that x term to the front. Now there is a negative in front of that 36. So don't lose it here either. Negative 36x. And then that's a positive 24. So I don't just write it like this and have a weird space. We write a plus sign since we need to separate the two terms. And now we divide by that number in front of y. This time it's not just a 6, it's a negative 6. So make sure that you are dividing by a negative 6 this time. On the left, the negatives cancel, the 6's cancel, and I have this y equals. On the right-hand side, I've got the negatives canceling, and then 36 divided by 6 is 6. And then my x. And then the 24 divided by negative 6, a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 24 divided by 6 is 4. And so this time, this would be my final answer. And let's do one more that has a little bit of a trickier simplifying process. Let's take the equation 4x plus 8y equals 40. So if I'm writing this one in slope-intercept form, let's move that 4x over. It was positive, so now we're going to make it a negative. It goes away on the left, and we have 8y equals, move these. So now I have negative 4x first, positive 40 after. And then divide everything by that number in front of y. So dividing everything by an 8. These cancel. And now I have y equals, and I'm going to not simplify it quite yet. I'm just going to write what we have here. So I have 4/8. I cannot do 4 divided by 8. I'm going to get a decimal. And I don't want my slope, when I am dealing with slope-intercept form, we don't want our slope to be a decimal. So I'm going to leave it as a fraction right now. Negative 4/8x. And then a positive 40 divided by 8 is positive 5. Now, there are a lot of people who will leave it right here, but I want to push you to simplify this. Now, when you simplify this, it's really important that you are paying attention to where your numbers are. So first of all, when I look at 4 and 8, I know that they share 2 and they share 4. Since 4 is the biggest number that they share, I'm going to divide by 4. And when I do that, I get y equals negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. And then 8 divided by 4 is 2. and then everything else stays the same. And for some reason, there will be people that make that negative 2x when they simplify. It's really, really, really important that you pay attention to your fraction. Right now, if I look at the first equation that I had here, 8 is the bigger number and it's on the bottom. And so when I divide by 4, I better have the bigger number on the bottom still. Okay, this doesn't magically flip around and be 2 over 1. Please make sure that you are keeping your fraction equivalent. Okay, 4 over 8 is not the same as 2. So once I've simplified this in my answer, this is a lot easier to graph than 4 over 8. Not that you couldn't, this is just easier for you. And so that's it. So again, now that you have the slope-intercept form, you could go ahead and graph this pretty easily if you wanted.